Candidate in sociology at York, and I work with Success Beyond Limits, which is based in Jane and Finch, tucked away in the northwest corner of this city. The young people with whom I am grateful to work grow up and attend school in Jane and Finch, and SBL, developed in 2010, is an organization that works to improve the educational outcomes, expand possibilities, and support youth in the Jane and Finch community along their individual paths to success, all doing so while keeping youth voice at the forefront of both SBL's motto and mandate. So this community and its set of demographic and structural factors are common across many communities in Toronto, which comes with the reality that our young people, their parents, the elders, and residents face an increased amount of policing, and what many in the community would call over-policing. And to many communities like mine, racial profiling is at the heart of that over-policing. So for community, this report does not inaugurate any new learning. For in fact, this reality has long been documented. These are not, in fact, new times. The interim report findings do, and I quote, go some way towards explaining why trust between the TPS and Black communities remains fractured, despite decades of protests, reports, recommendations, and commitments related to anti-Black racism, end quote. It should be noted that in this interim report, protests comes first. Black and racialized communities have long been detailing the realities expressed in this report. What the Commission report does do is continue to validate the experiences and realities that are often absent. And while those of us who have been working on racial profiling in Toronto for some time might skeptically mark this report as just yet another in a long line, I firsthand saw the importance the focus groups and the community consultations conducted by the Commission played for the young people who were just beginning to have these types of interactions with police. This report confirms the realities of young people's lives in parts of the city that too often go unheard. Take, for example, one story where a young person in grade 10 described an incident when he was asked to step outside of class. He was greeted with 2 TPS officers waiting for him, and he was arrested and taken away. He was told he was being arrested for armed robbery and drug possession. While in custody, he said the police went to search his house and later realized it was a different person with the same facial structure. He told us he kept thinking about his mom. I quote him, how she was going to take it because I didn't do anything. She'd be stressing and crying. I got to my house and it was messy and I had to clean it myself, end quote. These stories of mistaken identity are common in the community. I hear these stories every day. These are commonplace. They are the everyday of young people living in communities like mine. Take another, a young man recounting to us his experience 4 years ago when he was around 14 years old. He was running around the neighborhood as part of a game he was playing with his friends when TPS officers stopped and arrested him. According to the individual, the officers thought he had a gun or had stolen something and was trying to run away. They stopped him, arrested him for allegedly having a gun and stealing, and eventually let him go. He says, they asked for my name and asked me why I was wearing all black. He was released after he explained he was playing a game with his friends. Again, to reiterate, these stories compared to others we might recount did not have a lethal end. Some do. As the report details, the long-standing concern of Black communities that are overrepresented in incidences of serious injury and deadly force involving the Toronto police demonstrates that the more serious the police conduct and lethal outcome, the greater the overrepresentation. So we're talking about excessive use of force or lethal ends, and most likely Black or racialized. The stories I have chosen to recount above, they're ordinary, they're common, and they are what our young people go through on a daily basis. I have heard from Black youth with whom I work that when they set out to come to school in the morning and consider which way they'll go, or whether they'll walk in pairs or in a group, are all decided with police in mind. Do I feel like talking to police today? Do I want to be harassed, hassled, questioned? Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. These stories are everyday, they are common. This is the reality of the young people growing up in different pockets in this city. As does the Commission, I too have serious concerns about racial profiling and racial discrimination of Black people by the TPS in use of force incidences, stops, questions and searches and charges. Communities across Toronto echo the Commission's call for the police to hold themselves to higher standards and practices that might break with the histories that we've marked in this report. A history of distrust, over-policing, and hurt. And for those at the brunt of these kind of experiences, these interactions stay with young people, their families, and their communities. These interactions are not singular or individual. Whole communities are affected and will continue to be unless this interim report and these people and their realities are taken with the utmost gravity. The challenge is an open one. Thank you.